on this computer. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our Career Discovery Friday. We have an amazing guest today, not only a stellar student athlete, but I would say a longtime friend, as we were in school at the same time. I'm just a little bit older than Angel, but we don't have to like talk. We're very close, right? But what an awesome opportunity it is just to have conversation with you, and for us to share your story and to applaud you for all the success you've had thus far. Angel and I were talking a little bit before, and it just has been so impressive, what you've accomplished in your career. You were a successful student athlete, but you have just taken every single challenge and you have just conquered the world. And so we're here to tell your story, and just to give you that platform to share with other student athletes where you are today, what got you to where you are, and maybe help them along their path. So I just want to open up to you. Tell us a little bit about you, what you studied here, what years you were here, and all that good stuff.
Okay, so we're gonna have to start from the beginning. First of all, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. This is really important to me because obviously everything that Florida State has given me, but then also just because being a student athlete honestly has changed my life. I grew up in a family of six siblings. We were all very competitive. My parents were very competitive. They were involved in sports. And I think the person I am today mainly is because of what they instilled in us at a very young age of if you say you want to do something, you put your everything into it. Um, know that people are watching you and try and be the best example and go after it. Have fun with what you're doing. We don't want to be the parents that are like, we're forcing you to do something. Like if at the end of the day, if you say you want to play basketball, volleyball, whatever it may be, it's because it's a passion of yours. So in that, I just always knew that sports was going to be a part of my life. Basketball wound up being that sport for me, even though I was involved in a lot of different things, challenged by my siblings in every way. And we just wanted to be very competitive. But at the end of the day, all the work that you put in as being a, standout in high school, in which I grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia, in the metro Atlanta area, basketball was huge and just like growing up around different names. But going to Florida State and actually being one of other women that are, standouts in their own state, it challenged me to see how I could be better every single step that I took. So I'm no longer the best. I'm trying to prove a point of what my worth is to a team that was trying to establish its footing in a league where their eyes were only on Duke, North Carolina. Maryland had just won the national title. And so it was very important to me to have an impact, right? Just be a part of that class with Alicia Harvin and then Jacinta Monroe. So that was a big part for me. If we're getting into studying, it was really cool because I was able to come in the summer before and be a part of the CARE program and get to see all the different, students outside of just being athletes. That was very important to me because it taught me the balance that I needed to have in life. I take that with me today because especially being a part of the NBA, when you have an 82 game season, you're playing back to backs, you're traveling, you're probably like, I just got off a stretch where I had 5 games in 1 week. So it's very important for me to also have that balance. And I think that that was established there at Florida State. So for me, studying with so many different things, and I'm pretty sure other student athletes were like, what am I going to do once I get here? My major changed like 3 times. I was like, I'm not sure. What am I going to do? I knew I wanted to stay in sports. I thought I was going to be an athletic trainer till I realized like the people that were working on me at 6 a.m., that's what they did. I was like, that's not going to work. I wanted to be a sports agent. And then I quickly realized like my career could kind of blossom in being a sports broadcaster and just seeing how they were involved in the sport and talking the game. And with me tearing my ACL my freshman year, I had some time to really think the game even more. And so I think that's where everything was established as far as like, okay, Angel, if this game is taken away from you, what else is there for you? And like I early on was able to realize that basketball brought me to this point, but my identity didn't lie solely in that. And so I was comfortable with saying, I don't have to play in the pros, but I can still be around basketball and live out my dreams in other ways.
And you have done exactly that in all aspects of it. I love how you talk about your identity. And in being a student athlete, it is our identity for so long, right? As you know, it got you to where you were here at Florida State and to be a successful student athlete. But you also realized that there would come a day whenever your playing days would end. And I'm sure that injury kind of made that perspective come and then start to make those plans. You mentioned, so you were thinking athletic training, and then I think we had talked, you said you had a minor in communications. Tell us a
Yeah,
little
minor
bit
in
about that.
communications.
Crazy.
Well,
So
it was interesting too because honestly, as much as I like tried to balance everything as far as like grades, I was just good enough, So it was just like, oh, okay, she's the average student, and it was interesting because it crushed my heart because communications was one of the toughest, majors that you can get into, and so I didn't have the GPA to get into the class or the major, but I still worked, and I was like, how am I going to still get the experience that I need? And I literally was almost like going door to door service with the teachers. And I emailed Tristan Sanders, I'll never forget. I said, hey, I want to be a part of your class. I know it's a major class, but I definitely want to be in it. I know I'm going to, do the minor. And she said, hey, this is a very tough class. This is honestly probably a little bit more than you can put on your plate right now being a student athlete. And I don't think she meant it in a bad way. I think it was more like a warning, like this is a tough, tough situation. Like even for regular students that don't have the, the added pressure of the athlete schedule, which you and I know can be from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at times. She's just like, it's just tough. And I remember saying, I can do it. Just give me a chance. I can do it. I wound up getting like a B plus. I was so upset I didn't get an A in her class. Still have a great relationship with her to this day. We just spoke about another young lady that we're trying to mentor in the world of sports broadcasting. But through that, she saw how dedicated I was. And I think too, just being an athlete, if ever I have kids, that's the one thing that is important to me, the tools that being an athlete gives you. I tell people all the time, I'm not the person today just because I play basketball. I'm the person I am today because of what being in sports taught me, like the accountability, selflessness. It's just not me. My actions reflect or there's consequence for my actions for everyone else too. So how am I being the best for everyone else? And then even just the aspect of working together to reach a common goal. Those are the things that people want to see on your resume once you leave the university. That's what stands out to them because they understand everything that goes in to being an athlete. So, oh yeah, it was communications was my minor. It definitely wanted to be my major, but at the end of the day, I was able to be a part of a university where I got the resources, the hands-on work. I interned with WCTV Channel 6 and got some hands-on experience there. Very long hours. And my coaches were probably livid that, they found out after the fact that I was in this internship with these hours. But it was something that I wanted to do. And I think that's going to be like a repetitive thing that I'm going through. Just like when you say you want to do something, your actions have to follow in that as well. So hopefully I'm doing that in my career.
but the work that you put in, right? So you contacted a professor, you're going, like you mentioned, you went door to door to figure out what could I do to get into something that I wanted. And you
Mhm.
put that work behind it to see that come to life. And it's created that opportunity and that path forward to give you the opportunity to excel in the career that you want. And you're so right about the student athlete experience and the transferable skills. We continue to That's been a theme through all of our conversations that we've had with our former student athletes of, man, I never knew that being an athlete would carry over in this way. And it's so true. And we say it, but now that you guys can say it too, it kind of reinforces that as well. Um, but again, speaking to your character and to who you are, and maybe some of the things that kind of helped you get where you are. So, um, I mean, I know you're a superstar. Like I knew that from the moment I met you. You and Scent and Ice and Mara was my roommate, who was your teammate. So we were all kind of, it was just a fun culture to be in, to kind of support other women across sport, but then get to know each other and celebrate each other's stories and successes. So it's been so neat to watch that from afar. But um, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your current position. So tell all these wonderful people how amazing you are. So tell them about your title, what you do, your job duties, things like that.
It's so funny when people are like, "Oh, you're doing great." I am the toughest person on myself. Even this morning, I was like, "I gotta be better. I gotta, get better at this, and I gotta make sure that I'm shining in this." And I had to take a deep breath, and I'm like, "But look at how far you've come."
Mm.
So thank you. I appreciate it. Just to go back to what you were saying too, and I get to the question. I remember rushing from practice with my teammates to come see you play. So I think just the celebrating of women and even applauding for everything that you have done and connecting has been amazing. So I will never forget that too. And you are the rock star. But for me, I am currently in the NBA, covering the NBA as a sideline reporter. Also, do some analyst work as well. That is very exciting for me. I also do WNBA coverage as well as an analyst, as well as play by play. I did the last 2 seasons without including COVID as a play by play for the LA Sparks. And then before that, I had time as a sideline reporter and analyst with the Atlanta Dream. So all of that has brought me to this point, living in Cleveland, working with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and just growing, continue to build relationships and just understanding how me being an athlete builds and helps me in this role. And it's so cool because even the couple games that I was able to be an analyst for now, you see how far we've come as women in this industry, and you see how valuable our voices are. Yes. And it's just so important that we continue to be the example, but also understand the glass ceiling. We shatter it every single day with every single move, with every single promotion. But when people say, wow, I walked away from the broadcast feeling smarter about the game, like you should be on all the time, those are things that make me feel better about how I prep, how I've, lived my life, even in the journey of getting to this point. Everything has given, me a little bit of fuel to add, to this current position. So it's exciting to get to say, oh, yeah, I need to discuss a feature with Kevin Love, or I got to talk to Steve Kerr the other day, or I'm literally, traveling with these guys and learning from them and the coaches, and even going over film with them and having those relationships. That's a dream come true, and I don't want to ever take that for granted, that at one point little Angel was like, will I ever get this opportunity? And I know that everyone wants to get better and be the best and be perfect at times, but we also can't miss those moments when we're like, hey, think about all the things, all the adversity, all the hurdles that you had to get to this point, and now you're here. Embrace it, have fun with it. And for me, I get to cover sports. Like, I'm not, sending a rocket up into space. Like, this is something that's fun, and I should have fun doing it as well. So that's a little bit about my job.
How cool. What I would do to just kind of be a fly on the wall in some of those conversations. Oh my goodness, that's just such a neat career path. And I think a lot of people, aspire for something similar, especially our student athletes who still want to be around sport and to make a career of their passion. And I think that's something that you had mentioned too, was, you probably considered a professional career whenever you were starting. And then, as you were trying to make those decisions, realizing that maybe your playing days were coming to an end, but I don't want sport to end. So you found a way to combine, that work life, that sport passion, that that slight interest in communication, yet the challenge of I can do this. And then you've broken down those barriers. You are crashing those ceilings, just making huge strides for the people that are coming behind you. So if you were to talk to Angel Gray stepping on Florida State's campus, what would you tell her in that process of figuring out, who she is, what she wants to do, and just that uncertainty that a lot of student athletes have?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd honestly start with almost what I told you just a couple breaths ago. Enjoy the journey. You don't need everything in the bulk right away. And then also run your race. there'll be times where I'd see everyone else getting the position or everyone else getting the yes while I was getting the no, or everyone else, in a space that I wanted to be in. And I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong? It's not so much what I was doing wrong, it just wasn't my time. And so the timing has always worked out to a point where even when I look back in certain things, I just wasn't ready for that door to be open. And for each thing that I've been able to walk through, it's been like, wow, I saw God in it too. Like, how impressive is it that I can have the confidence to do something because I know it's not just my will? And so, me speaking to young angels, just understanding to enjoy that journey and realize the people that had your back and have your back in the process, that's the biggest story. Like, honestly, it's amazing that I get to live out my dreams today and get to, be around the game that I love and actually say I am using the game as much as it used me. And it's cool because I think the biggest part of my journey, and in a sense, the way that I've been shaped and molded has been the adversity, has been the challenges of, should I keep going? The perseverance. Like, this is kind of tough. Like, am I really supposed to be doing this? And having those people say yes, having those moments where someone calls from ACC, at the home office, and they're like, we see the work that you're doing. We thought of you. And you're like, wow, I need to make sure that I stay focused on my focus and not trying to figure out everybody else's life story, but really realizing what God has for you is for you. So it might be a little deep for an 18-year-old, but honestly, I think I would have understood it to a point where just enjoy it.
It's so perfectly said. And it is hard to do that. It's like you mentioned, as an 18-year-old, as you're trying to figure out and have that confidence to look past what's going on right now and to pursue exactly what's meant for you. That's so beautifully said. If you were to give yourself that freedom to say, what is the dream job, ultimate destination career? What does that look like?
So many different things. Like, it's funny because I'm a big vision board person. So each year I, try and do something. Last year, obviously, that was a big halt. So I was like, I still have a vision board from the previous year that I need to make sure that those things are coming into fruition. But I think I said my dream job, like the journey was like, I want to cover the NBA. I remember writing that down in my journal saying, I want some experience. I was so nervous about the job that I was like, I like experience in the NBA. And then I was like, I also want to work in the WNBA. I want to cover some games. And I was able to do that 5, 6 years into my career. So now it's like, what's that next step for you? I think I'm still evolving and growing and understanding, who I am in this space. But I do think I try to be that person where even with this, if it's with a coach or a player, they realize that I'm stepping to the table as a friend, as a person that wants to share their story. Because I've been there too, where, we're not just athletes, as we've heard and seen, especially in years past. There are so many different things that contribute to the people that we are. And I think Steve Kerr even mentioned the other night, he said, when you look at how someone plays basketball, you look at a person and how they live their life. And so sometimes you see like what that person is on the court, how people say, oh, they have that winning attitude. They know all the things in the locker room. They know the players are, going and gravitating towards them. Those are the stories I want to share, like the whys behind that. So hopefully, moving forward, I would love to have my own show, just sharing those stories and building off of those connections with different people, because I think it is very necessary, especially in a time where we are seeing the more than an athlete attitude. And it's been cool to even hear and see how they've taken up more space.
I love that you mentioned Steve Kerr. Um, and that seems to be who he is, right? And granted, I've had several interviews with him, so I clearly know this as well. But his segment in The Last Dance, whenever he was talking about his family and how that impacted, but then also the role that he played in those titles. And my favorite Steve Kerr moment from that whole series was whenever he was interviewed at the reception afterwards, and he was telling the story of what happened whenever he hit the shot. He's like, I guess I gotta bail Michael out again. If you haven't seen The Last Dance, everybody needs to go and watch just that segment.
Yeah.
It's so
Perfect.
perfect. But how cool is that? What is your favorite interview? Who would you say would be the best?
Hands down, Kobe Bryant was probably game 3 for the WNBA finals. He was at Staples, he was retired. At the time, I was so nervous. And what I found out later that it was it was prohibited for me to even go over and do the interview because I was at the time working with NBA TV and ESPN had the rights to the lower bowl and everything filmed in there. But I remember saying, oh gosh, Kobe's at the game. I want to get an interview with him. And, PR people were saying, just ask him. I said, you want me to just walk up to Kobe and say, can we get an interview? She's like, yeah, he'll be great. I was like, I may die before I even get the question out. But I remember walking to him and I said, hi, I made sure to have my, mic flag, which is basically my microphone showing who I worked with. And I was like, hey, I'm with so-and-so. Would you mind doing an interview for us? And just as Kobe-esque as you could be, yes, we can do it the first time out under the 3-minute break and make sure that this and this and this. And I'm like, got it. And in my mind, I'm like, did he say the second time out? Did he say this? But he was so precise. And I'm walking up and I'm like, we got it. So I remember when the time came and I get up, there's a timeout. We're in Staples Center, waiting for things to get going. And I walk to him because he's on the baseline of courtside. And he's sitting next to his wife who was pregnant at the time. And Gigi is with him as well. And he is talking about the game and the respect he has for women and how Gigi brought him to the game and was like, we got to see these women play. And just even, his investment into the players at that time, like he knew everything. Like it's one thing to be an athlete, especially like when everyone's talking about, oh, women don't get the respect they deserve. But when you have a premier athlete, an elite being literally saying how much he appreciates the WNBA and his favorite players, whether it be, Swoops or Cynthia Cooper, he was breaking it down and just got to talk about the Mamba mentality and walked off. And I'll never forget, I was like, thanks, Kobe. And he said, hey, good job. I honestly wanted to put that on my resume. Kobe told me good job after an interview. And I probably might do that after this call. but
closing remarks.
Yeah, exactly. But I think hands down, just knowing the magnitude of that moment, and just saying, let's go kill it. Cause I was so nervous. And honestly, I tell people all the time, you're so caught up in your job that you sometimes say, okay, I just got to get it done. But you have to say, wow, that was pretty cool. That maybe 5 minutes later, they're like, okay, now you have an interview in the hallway with Magic Johnson. I was like, okay, I'm on the way. So you're thinking these things and you're like, after you let like the dust settle, you're like, I'm pretty lucky to get to have these conversations with legends. And as I said before, Kobe is definitely 1A, 1B, 2, 3 of my favorite interviews.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Gonna make me cry because that is just, it's so impactful, right? And obviously in hindsight, looking back on that whole story, right? Him being there with his wife and Gigi. And I mean, that's just, those are life-changing moments. And I think Kobe's known for that. And being a part of that, and then also carrying that forward. And that's what you're doing every single day. That number one, you're empowering other women, right? You're empowering other Florida State women to be like, yes, I can have a minor and go kill it in a career that I wasn't sure was even going to be possible. And you live that out every single day. So excuse me for being a ball of tears over here because it's just so neat to watch. And you're living in where your feet are, and you're acknowledging just how grandiose it is, right? Like, have a conversation with Kobe. Here's Steve Kerr. Like, here's Magic Johnson. You say those like it's your friends, and I'm like, oh, how amazing that is. So, how cool. but just know the impact that and the legacy that you're leaving for all of the Florida State student athletes that are coming behind you. So, so awesome.
Thank
Um, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but what would you say to an advice as we're the objective of this is to help student athletes realize that your career doesn't have to be fit into this box and your major doesn't always dictate what that job looks like. So the career discovery piece of it is huge. What opportunities are out there, but specifically to your field in communication and for someone trying to pursue a dream similar to yours, what should they be doing right now and what can help them get a foot in the door?
I'll start with this. Well, first off, thank you so much for those encouraging words. Like, honestly, I really appreciate that. It means a great deal. As far as the advice, I would say first understand what passion really is. I was making $30 for games out of the gate for this, and I was probably the happiest person on the planet. So find something that you would say, if I didn't get paid to do it, I'd still be on cloud nine about pursuing it because the money will come, but you have to wake up every day and be like, this really isn't work. This is just something I really, really enjoy doing. And I really understood that when I was out in LA working for UCLA and walking away from those games, like, did you hear the radio call? And getting $30. So excited about it, but that's where it all began. I would say too, just narrowing in and taking advantage of the resources. I know for student athletes, our schedules are a bit hectic and challenging at times to fit other things in there. But I found time and just building that relationship with coaches where it's like, hey, this is a meeting, or this business is coming, like ESPN or CNN is going to be on campus. It kind of interferes with the last part of our practice time. Is it okay if I go? And just building that relationship and just making sure that you're taking care of what got you to the university in the first place. So yes, taking care of your grades, taking care of everything that you need to do on the court, and having that trust within, even your own head coach or whatever, that they can say, yes, that you need to be there. This is something that, you're here for, as well as just continuing to build on your career. And I took advantage of every opportunity I could. One of the opportunities that I actually received, I remember, who was it? Brian Battle and Brandy Stewart came up to me and they were like, whatever you said to CNN, they loved it. They don't have any jobs right now at the point, but you gave them their resume, they said, and it was me and probably 3 other people there. And they were like, she stood out. She just made sure that everything was together. And those resources were Brandy Stewart and Brian Battle. I was going over my resume and it was like, what are these words? Like, how do you put this together? And what is this looking like? Because that's hard too. As an athlete, how do you make your resume look like a resume when all you may have is just the experience of being an athlete? So I took advantage of those moments with everyone in each department, honestly. Talked with Tina at times just about interviewing skills. What do I need to do as far as a presence? What are they looking for? How do I show my personality? What things do I need to say? What are the key terms that I need to make sure that I touch upon? It was almost like another class of how to succeed and build on your career. And I just remember being very invested, and I actually shadowed her as well at the time when she was right there with Bobby Bowden, making sure that everywhere that he went, like, he knew what his media obligations were. So it's just, honestly, for me, the advice would be narrow in on what you want to do. Know that that's your passion. And it may not just be one. I have other passions outside of sports, but know what your bread and butter is. For me, broadcasting allowed other doors to open. So I understood what I needed to feed. And with me feeding that, other people noticed my passion. Other people will notice your passion if you're feeding that. Continue to build in it. And another thing that I'm greatly appreciative of is that the fact that the ACC programs, postgraduate internship, I was a product of that. I remember playing in, what was it? Oh, I think it was Durham. So maybe we were Duke or North Carolina. And they were like, all right, the game's over. We just won, beat North Carolina, which is great. And then I took a bus to Greenville, I believe, to do interviews with the office and just with Fox Sports Florida and just like Coca-Cola and Fox Sports South. And that opportunity, they were like, we already know we want you. So let's talk about what you could do when you get there. So it's just taking advantage of that, building on the connections, reaching out to people, having a mentor, not being afraid to reach out to people, because if you don't ask, then how is anyone supposed to help? So hopefully that wasn't too wordy. I can get wordy, but those are some things that I definitely did in my time coming up at Florida State.
So perfect. I just think you should write a book. Like
Oh!
write a book for all of these women that are coming after you, after in your footsteps. So awesome. And thank you for that. Okay, one more question. This will be the last thing that I ask you. Florida State Seminoles and, you know, our experience as student athletes and the people that we've met, I am very curious to know. So you and Jacinta, who should we call her Scent, we're good friends. Tell us about Scent. How is Scent doing these days?
Jacinta Monroe is still Scent. That is my best friend and honestly family. Honestly, like my foundation, honestly, because we growing up at Florida State together, honestly maturing with one another, we had very similar interests. And so we were both women of faith. We had, you know, crazy fun relationships with our brother. And we were just wanted to have a good time and just, you know, the traveling and just being the life of the party. She just demanded the room. Let's just say that. We've seen how Sin can demand the room. But honestly, even in my adult life, it's been cool to see someone that has accomplished so much in her career. She's still playing to this day, and even everything that she's gone through. We've been each other's like anchor. Like, how can you get better? Challenging each other to say, like, what do you need to be doing? There'll be times where I'm like, I've had it, I'm over. And she's like, suck it up, you're fine. And just realize who you are in this business. So she's doing well. And it's so funny because I think I'm her biggest fan. But it's been cool to go back and look at some of those moments at Florida State when, you know, she's blocking shots and we're just in awe, or we're talking to, you know, Coach White and going over memories with Coach Sue. And, you know, even with some of the other players, like we really were a sisterhood. Like we really cared for one another. We really invested in each other's lives. And I think that that's the biggest part of when you go to a university, you want to walk away and say, I wouldn't change a thing. I would not change a thing, because I walked away with sisters that I can to this day, you know, call and ask for advice. I was in a couple of weddings, you know, been able to even stay with, you know, different families for my journey for Alexa DeLuzio. So I think overall, that sisterhood was very important, but obviously I'm biased, but Scent has always been my fave.
Just hilarious. I mean, right? And but there was never a time whenever the two of you weren't together too. So it was like a dynamic.
It was like a package deal. We were just
absolutely.
Like, it was almost like I was the small one, she was tall one. It was just we were roommates. It was just so funny. Like we were always around each other, and that's pretty funny. Like that was the thing.
Florida State, which is so neat, and it's been so fun connecting with former student athletes and kind of retelling those stories, because that is Florida State. Mm-hmm. And that is what I took away why I'm still here, is because I love this place. I love the tradition. I love what Florida State means, of who we are. And then we're just growing that next generation, right? We're that next generation of Seminoles coming behind us. But you have offered so much wisdom for our current student athletes, and we appreciate you sharing your story and just helping us grow along that path. Angel, we appreciate you. You're doing big things. Keep on keeping on. And anytime you need someone to travel with you, to carry your purse, you just holler at me and I will gladly jump on a plane.
I got your number. It's going to happen.
All right, thank you
so much. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
I do.